learn how to shoot the ball.
Draymond Green was always Steph's pick and roll partner. I always thought until KD got there, actually the second most important player on the team because of that. And whether or not Wiseman can also do that, I ask you again, Stephen A., I'm not questioning that they have talent. They have talent. Where does the shooting come from? I don't care how different you play. You must have a base level of shooting, or else you're counting by twos. Where does it come from?
Well, let me answer that.
They have to make a move, right?
Let me answer that. The fact of the matter is that if you have a marksman who is so lethal that he draws attention, he creates open shots, and dudes who usually can't shoot find a way to shoot just a tad bit better because they're wide open. It happens. It couldn't happen last year with Steph and Clay both gone, but with a guy on the court, it could create shooting opportunities for other people.
I feel bad for Clay, having known him and his father and his entire family. I know a lot of people look at it and say, well, there goes the Warriors NBA championship hopes for this upcoming season.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zoo.
I've been looking at the sun, but can't work.
It's over. From somebody who's had a left leg injury, if you were to compensate, have that right Achilles injury, that takes a while to come back from.
I remember I ain't make a three, now I'm curved.
We've seen Steph play when it hasn't been with Clay, and it puts a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. He can handle it, but the volume in which you need him to do that typically has led to him being injured as well. So without Klay Thompson, I'm picking Phoenix to finish higher than I would pick the Golden State Warriors.
And those are the voices of the fellas as we head to a football Friday. We'll start with a little basketball, as you just heard this morning. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, presented by Progressive Insurance. Free agency begins tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time, but if you want to use a clock designation, I think it's fair enough to say it struck midnight. The clock has struck midnight on the Warriors dynasty. No problem. 6 p.m. Eastern for free agency. I'll just get you caught up on what I said just in case you missed it. 6 p.m. Eastern for free agency. Clock striking midnight on the Warriors dynasty. Obviously, Durant has extricated himself. Clay's going to be out again for the season. Now it falls upon Steph Curry. This is Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin coming to you live from the Seaport District at Pier 17, brought to you by Chase, which leaves their starting lineup you would imagine at the moment. Wiggins, Oubre, the new kid, James Wiseman, Steph, and Draymond Green. And right out of the gate, when you look at that 5J, you essentially said the first thing when I mentioned those five names is, sure, Wiggins is a talented player. Sure, Steph needs some help. But in your mind, Wiggins may not be enough here.
Well, Kelly Oubre helps out a lot. He helps out a lot. I mean, he did average 19 points per game. You know, he was part of the whole Valley Boys, him and Devin Booker in Phoenix before he got utilized in the trade to OKC, obviously bringing him to where he is now with Golden State. What I was saying before, though, is that the dynamic is different, right? Kelly Oubre can do a lot, slash and get into the rim, doing things off the dribble. Andrew Wiggins is not an elite three-point shooter. He can make three-point shots. He's a 3-and-D kind of guy when he wants to lock in defensively. He's, had a couple great years defensively and can score 24 points per game. I'm just saying the style in which you play has to drastically change. There was so much more continuity, right? Imagine like the way water moves. Like that's how Golden State's offense worked, right? Everything was fluid when you talk about continuity. Now you have sometimes the ball stops a little bit. It's not the same with Wiggins and Kelly Oubre. And the amount of attention that Clay is able to attract off down screens, right? It keeps the defense on edge all the time because you're wondering about where Clay is, and that allows driving lanes for Steph Curry, Draymond Green, guys like that to work. Now the style has to change. I just don't think it's not as effective when you have the greatest shooting backcourt ever to play the game. Not together. It forces Steph to have to do a lot more. I'm not saying he can't do it. I just don't see it being at the same clip of success that it was before that they had, just those guys together.
Well, clearly, Jay, it's not going to be at the same clip. I mean, whenever you lose somebody that's been an important part of what you do for a long period of time and you insert somebody else into the lineup, it's never going to be the same. I just don't think, though, when you look at it, yes, they go out and get Kelly Oubre. Yes, that he's there. Wiggins is there. you'll still be able to do some of the same things. They're not pure shooters. And you were explaining to me, because I was asking you why, on a little sidebar, Z, I was asking him, when Clay shoots the ball, how come it snaps the net, where a lot of other people, when they shoot those jumpers, it kind of just floats through the net. And he was explaining it to me. So you can clearly see how pure he is with the ball in his hands, or coming off screens, or coming around the certain picks, catching and shooting, opposed to what Kelly could do, or opposed to what Wiggins could potentially do. Maybe Wiggins makes up for the defensive side that you'll be missing with Clay. And then collectively, offensively, those two can put those points on the board.
I'll say this with Key. I'm trending with you here, because yesterday, before I heard the Kelly Oubre news, I was like, man, that's a team. There's 6, 7, 8. Like, they probably get into the playoffs because of that new playoff format where 9 and 10 will play 7 and 8. That's the way it's going to work out. 9 and 10 will have to win 2 games as opposed to 7 and 8 that will have to win 1 game in order for them to get the 7 or 8 seed in the postseason tournament. But now adding Kelly Oubre, that makes it different, man. Like, they got size, and those guys obviously need to play, but it does allow other playmakers to help Steph, which allows him to play off the ball.
Well, if Steph was by himself prior to the trade, then it's just like, what do? You fall into we can make the playoff type situation, opposed to being a threat to somebody. Anything can happen. There's no question about it. Injuries can happen to other teams, whatever the case, bad nights, all of that. But even with Klay Thompson on board, I never really felt like that they were a major threat to come out of the West to the Clippers and the Lakers. The Lakers, obviously, they go out and get Schroeder. They're going to re-sign some guys. Hopefully Dwight comes back. So that's a little bit different because of their length and their size, opposed to the shooting that Golden State has. But then when you look at the Clippers side of it, I'm sure the Clippers are going to address some needs that they have today when free agency starts. And so you look at those two teams, and then you kind of got the Denvers of the world, the Utahs, Dame Lillard and Portland sitting around there. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Golden State, but I just never really felt, Jay, that Golden State was a threat to the Lakers or the Clippers coming out of the West. And I know we get caught up in the moment of the great history of what Golden State has been. But remember, Kevin Durant was a huge part of that, who is no longer there. And then prior to that, when they were young guns, I don't know, was it 6 years ago? They had a different makeup with Livingston and Iguodala and those guys. They're no longer there.
And the rest of the league. See, the way the
bench isn't the same.
That's exactly. And the way Golden State won that first one, teams weren't playing that fast. Teams weren't spreading the floor the way they spread the floor. Teams didn't have the three-point shooting that they had, right?
So they took that recipe that Golden State had and stole it to a degree to try to put it on their teams and in their organizations.
And the rest of the league has caught up to the way Golden State plays. Now everybody plays that way, spacing the floor, three-point shooting at volume, and things of that sort, right? So, yeah, I just think we don't talk about Golden State winning a world championship until Klay's back on the court, and then that depends upon what version of Klay Thompson comes back off 2 injuries where he will not have played basketball in 2.5 years. And what ACL is one thing, and Achilles is something so different.
Could I ask you a question? Because I really honestly don't know, and I'm not doing this just to do it. How long did it take you after your accident? What did it take? Like 2.5 years to even just be able to?
Oh, I had a lot more than just ACL and Achilles.
No, but I mean just injury in general.
I mean, it took me 2.5 years.
And you still didn't feel right.
I just never. I wonder how it'll be with an Achilles. Like, and I talked to Kevin about this a little bit.
I'm talking more about the layoff.
Yeah, well, obviously the layoff is tough. You miss it. I mean, you can bounce back from that over time. The question is, your body just never feels the same. And this is key. This is where you start thinking about this environment where you play. You ask anybody, like, you go through a couple of injuries. Mm-hmm. Look at Tom Brady. I'm trying to go somewhere warm, man. CP3 at this stage of his career, people are like, all right, LA, Phoenix, it's always warm. Think about what that humidity does to your body, right? Even if it's dry heat. Like, you much rather be around heat than being in locations where it's cold all the time. Coming off injuries is Klay. I mean, he's going to be 31 by the time he comes back. I know it's not old, but in basketball, football, like, that ain't young.
Yeah, walking in from the parking lot over here outside to come to the studio, my face almost fell off. It's so damn cold outside. Man,
you know what it is, man.
I was walking, I'm like, I'm trying to get in. I'm like, damn, I forgot my ID.
In basketball terms, 31, that makes you feel like you're like 65 years old, man. Like you've been playing this game for a long period of time, especially for a guy that has ran the third most miles in the league since 2013-14. The third most. Like that's how much he goes up and down the court.
Let me ask you this as a basketball expert. So it's different than a Vince Carter, different than a Grant Hill, different because Clay wasn't he's just a shooter. He's a defender. He's not a dunker, explosive type guy that's going to be going and snatching and grabbing and jumping up and down. Does that have will that effect be gone?
Well, I mean, in order to be first off, Clay got some stuff in his bag offensively, man. It's just not all off the jump shot. He can create off the dribble too.
Yeah, but
it's not the same like Devin Booker sexiness. You know what I mean?
It's saying that explosiveness where all of a sudden every time that he's jumping, he's coming down hard.
See, I worry more about the lateral movement, right, with an Achilles, stuff like that. I mean, I know jumping but he's so good defensively. If you don't have that same lateral movement, if Clay just becomes just a shooter, that'll be such a disservice to his game. Still be utilized because he's one of the best shooters we've ever seen. But still, the east to west movement that he has, that little shake, that shimmy, his explosion, you take that away, he just becomes a completely different player.
So it'll be like old man game.
Yeah, he'll still make money. He'll still do his thing. It just won't be at the same elite level. Because, man, I can go put him on you, be like, yo, go lock him up. Like, and I can know you ain't getting nothing, and he gonna give you 35, 40.
No, I understand.
Like, it's just different. Now you're like, hey, I need you to be a shooter. It's just different.
And
dynamic.
then you got to get around stuff to be able to get the ball to shoot it, and that's still lateral movement that's in there.
Last couple things. Today would mark 520 days since Klay Thompson has played a basketball game. 520, and now you think you got another year to add on top of that. One other thing I just want to quickly mention. That's a long time, and we're just starting the process again for another year. One thing I want to mention that